Yo, what's up, guys? We're back, and this week it's for arguably the best card of the year. I'm extremely pumped for this one. We got Charles Oliveira taking on Islam Makhachev in the main event. We got Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw for the lineal and undisputed bantamweight title. We got Petr versus Sean O'Malley. We got Beneil Dariush versus Mateusz Gamrot, and a hell of a lot of other fights on the card. So, man, I mean, this is a can't miss card. This is a card that I'm extremely pumped about. I really got quite a few bets in this card. I actually like this card from a betting perspective as well. So if you want to get access to those bets, like always, check out patreon.com/MAPredictionGuru. We're going to be trying to get up over 100 units on the year this weekend. So that's going to be an impressive milestone if we could do it. And yeah, hopefully you guys will be around and join the Patreon to be able to share in that milestone and make some money, man, because I'm feeling pretty confident in the bets that I have this week for UFC 280. I already have 7 bets, and I'm probably going to add a couple more as well. So this is going to be one of the bigger betting cards for me I've had in a while. And there's going to be some LFA this week. There's already one on Prime 2 video that I dropped on the YouTube channel, and they're going to be doing their show on Friday. So if you want to bet on that and get some information on that, watch the video. And yeah, man, besides that, really appreciate everyone that always supports the channel. Make sure to hit the like button on this one. Let's try to run up the likes and comments on this one. Put down below who you think's going to win the main event, how you think they're going to win. Do you think that Dillashaw or Sterling are going to win? I'm kind of curious to see what your guys' predictions are for the main event and the co-main event. And then I also want to know, who do you guys think is going to win between Beneil Dariush and Mateusz Gamrot? Because that's another fight that I think is flying a little bit under the radar and a really important fight for that division. Really close fight, and I would be curious to hear your guys' opinions. So let me know what you think about that with Mateusz Gamrot versus Beneil Dariush as well. But right before we get started, I just want to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this video, which is CashflowMMA.com. With CashflowMMA.com, you have access to one of the best MMA bettors in the world today. They're currently up over 1,200% this year ROI on their bets, 83% win rate on the year, which is phenomenal. Even last year, they were up 1058% in 2021. So they're proven winners. They've been killing it. They've been winning quite a bit of money for their members. So if you want to start building an extra income, man, I mean, I think CashflowMMA.com is one of the people to go and definitely sought out and get their information, because I think they're one of the best in the world at it. So definitely check out CashflowMMA.com and join their program and see if you like it. So I think CashflowMMA.com is a great asset to have here in the MMA community. And the first fight kicking off the card here, we got Lina Landsberg versus Karol Rosa. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this matchup because I do think it's a bit of a squash match. We got Lina Landsberg, who's coming back after a pretty significant layoff, and she's coming off 2 losses in a row. She hasn't won in almost 3 years. She is 40 years old, so that's another pretty alarming thing that you look at. But Lina Landsberg, she's been in the UFC for a long time now, and everyone kind of knows what type of style she likes to use. She likes to, at range, she's pretty slow, but she'll be tricky, and when she lands, she'll land counter elbows or counter punches that are heavy. So she has some power, but she doesn't throw a lot of volume, and she's very slow at range, so girls can just beat her up and out volume her most of the time. That's why Lina Landsberg loves to get that clinch. She really likes to get close to you against the cage, hold you there, work her short elbows, try to cut you open, and just grind you out there. And in her last couple wins, if you look at her win over Tanya Evinger, a win over Macy Chiasson, which was a big upset win, she got those wins through her offensive wrestling, through being able to out-wrestle those girls, get on top, and control the position. And Karol Rosa, she is coming off of a loss to a wrestler in Sarah McMahon, where she got taken down and controlled. And that was a fight where if Karol Rosa would have won that fight, she would have been pretty close to a title shot, and that was a big setback for her with that loss to McMahon. So now she's getting an unranked girl, and they're trying to kind of see where they are with Karol Rosa. If she loses to a girl like Lina Landsberg, then maybe they were totally wrong about her prospects, and she's never going to be someone that's a threat for the title or anything. But if she can come out here and get a dominant win, she could reposition herself as one of the upper echelon newer girls at 135 pounds. And Karol Rosa, she is a pressure fighter with good leg kicks, decent boxing. She throws a ton of volume out there, very durable. She has power. And I also feel like Karol Rosa has decent grappling skills. I've seen her out-grapple certain girls. She has questionable jiu-jitsu, but I feel like she has better jiu-jitsu than Lina Landsberg. She is a black belt, and she also has pretty good strength against the cage, good grappling. Her wrestling is a little questionable. She got exposed to the wrestling in her last fight, but I don't think anyone would confuse Lina Landsberg for an Olympic silver medalist like Sarah McMahon. So ultimately, I just feel like Karol Rosa is going to run away with this fight. I don't think she's going to finish Lena Landsberg. Lena Landsberg has been finished a couple times on the ground by girls like Aspen Ladd, Chris Cyborg, but Lena Landsberg notoriously has been pretty tough, pretty durable. I feel like a majority of this fight's going to play out on the feet, and then maybe if Lena Landsberg tries to clinch, Rosa will get a couple surprise takedowns, but I don't think that wrestling will be a big part of Rosa's game plan. I think that Lena Landsberg is going to be the one to try to make it more of a grappling match. So ultimately, I think it's just going to be Karol Rosa landing more volume at range and kind of beating up Lena Landsberg with her superior speed and combinations. And just her being 27, she's 13 years younger than Lena Landsberg. That's extremely significant in my opinion. And I just feel like Karol Rosa, she still has more to offer in the UFC. If she loses this fight to Lena Landsberg, that would be a really bad loss, pivotal loss in her career trajectory. And I think that she knows that she's going to be fighting and competing at her full capabilities here. And I say she gets the win. And this next one, just like that last fight, it's another fight that I think is a bit of a squash match with Muhammad Mokaev taking on Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon's coming in as a huge plus 500 underdog, but he does have 2 wins in a row, so you have to respect that. He's coming off that finish against Denise Bondar where he broke Bondar's arm. Before that, he got an upset win over Francisco Figueiredo by decision. And he did start his UFC career 0-2. He got finished twice in the first round. And usually when Malcolm Gordon loses, he's getting finished early. He has a questionable chin. I mean, if you touch him on the chin even once, it seems like he tends to go down. And in his fight with Amir Albazi, he showed, he struggled against really good wrestlers with heavy top pressure and good submission games. And with Muhammad Mokaev, you got just that. But Malcolm Gordon on the feet is fairly slick with his offensive striking. He has good pull counters. He could switch stance counter, and he has some power. So for flyweight, if he lands clean, he is one of those guys that could change the tide of the fight, but he also has bad durability, and it's not like he sets up his strikes the best. It's more like he just is tricky, and if he can connect clean with one of his pull twos or one of his switch stance attacks, then he can hurt you. But I think Mokaev is a lot more technical, a lot sharper on the feet overall, more durable. And he showed in certain fights, the Cody Durden fight and a couple others, that his striking is moving up just like his grappling. He landed that head kick, dropped Cody Durden, and then submitted him. And his last fight, I mean, it was a little bit of a cure to insomnia with Charles Johnson. I mean, he barely threw any punches. It just kind of grinded him out for 3 consecutive rounds. I think he knew Charles Johnson is a beast. This guy could strike really well. He's long, rangy, and I don't want to have anything to do with that. And on the ground, he knew Charles Johnson was a good grappler, that if he gave him space or if he kind of tried to advance into a more dominant position, he could maybe let Charles Johnson get back up to his feet. So he just basically just held him down and didn't do much. But I guess it showed good fight IQ, and that's kind of what I've seen from Muhammad Mokaev in a lot of his other fights, where he didn't have that high propensity to finish. He didn't really feel like he was thinking about the finish too much. But with Malcolm Gordon, I do feel like a finish is almost inevitable in this one. Malcolm Gordon's a guy that can't take shots well, and if you take him down, he tends to make mistakes. He does have a decent guard, and he does have good jiu-jitsu. You have to give him that. But I don't think he's the best off his back, and if you can use some ground and pound to get him to give you a dominant position, you could submit him fairly easily, and you could also knock him out. So I feel like this is Mokaev's fight to lose and Mokaev's fight to get the finish early. So I'm going to say Mokaev, as long as he shows up and, fights to his full capabilities, he goes out there and gets the first round finish either by knockout or by submission. I just think that UFC is trying to set this up for Mokaev to get back in there, have another highlight reel performance, and then maybe move him up the rankings because his last fight was a little bit boring. But, I don't really see how Malcolm Gordon has very much form in terms of winning. Even if Muhammad Mokaev somehow can't finish, I don't know how Malcolm Gordon would get the victory. So, I think Mokaev's going to get the job done here, and I'm going to say he wins in the first round. And this next fight right here, this should be a banger of a fight right here between Armen Petrosyan and AJ Dobson. Both these guys are coming off losses. Armen Petrosyan, he does have a big win already in the UFC. He beat Gregory Rodriguez, who is on a tear. I feel like Rodriguez won that fight, honestly, but on paper, Petrosyan does have a win over Gregory Rodriguez. His last fight, though, he got dominated in the grappling by Caio Borralho. He got taken down, gave his back, and was controlled essentially for 2.5 out of 3 rounds. He had some success late in the third, but that was minimal.
And for AJ Dobson, he's coming off a loss in his UFC debut. He was 6-0 before joining the UFC. He won the Contender Series in first round fashion, but ended up losing the decision to Jacob Malkoun, who's proven to be a tough out. And Malkoun was just kind of able to do what he does. The first round, AJ Dobson won that round. He was able to stuff the takedowns. He rocked Jacob Malkoun, but the second round he got taken down. The third round he got taken down and ended up losing that decision. So with this fight, he's going to have a way different matchup with Armen Petrosyan, who's a pure striker. And I think he's going to like this matchup more than that last matchup with Jacob Malkoun. And he's going to have a huge reach advantage, which I think is going to be pretty significant in the fight. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. Petrosyan is a guy that's tall, long, 6'3". Not necessarily long. I guess he has short arms, 71-inch reach. But he's used to being a guy that snipes shots from the outside and uses his length. And with AJ Dobson having these real long arms, I think that could kind of throw off Petrosyan a little bit with the distance. But Petrosyan, he is probably the more technical striker. He is definitely the more diverse striker. He'll throw nice kicks, good leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, spin kicks, knees. So he has the whole gambit of weapons on the feet. And he also has nice sniping punches. So he'll land these nice pull twos, 1-2 counter shots. And basically he tries to feint, pressure, throw kicks from the outside, get guys to come to him, and then counter with the straight shots. And with AJ Dobson, he's not going to get someone that's going to shy away. AJ Dobson's going to be coming forward. AJ Dobson is a brawler. He has a wrestling background, but I don't really see him wrestling in any fights. He likes to come forward with that high guard. He likes to, counter punch too, but he also will come forward and throw real nice combinations, feints to try to open his opponent up. And then he has real nice, real accurate, straight, powerful right hands, overhand rights. He lands flush, and he can knock guys out with the 1-2s. And in the pocket, he's super dangerous, brawling. So AJ Dobson, he's just a beast guy that very, very fast, explosive, nice, tight, high guard that wants to get inside, brawl with you, and catch you with that kill shot, knock you out. He has almost all of his wins by first round KO or first round submission, and tends to go out there and blow guys out the water when he gets the win. And Dobson, like I said, I've seen him get a couple takedowns on certain guys. Maybe if he's getting dominated in the striking realm, he'll go to the wrestling against Armen Petrosyan. But I feel like Armen Petrosyan, even though he's a slick striker with decent counter-striking ability, I feel like he is very hittable himself. He's there to be countered. And AJ Dobson is not someone you want to be countering you early with the straight punches. And I feel like Armen Petrosyan is going to stick on that center line and get knocked out for the second time in his career. I see him getting caught early with a big strike from AJ Dobson and getting put to sleep. So I got to go with AJ Dobson as the underdog here. I think that this line is off. I think it should be closer. I don't really see Petrosyan, even though he did get the win over Gregory Rodriguez, I think he lost that fight personally, so I don't view it exactly the same. And I feel like AJ Dobson should be closer to a pick 'em at the money line than Petrosyan being over a 2-1 favorite. So because of that, I'm going to pick AJ Dobson to win by first round knockout.
And in this next matchup, we got some Russia and Russia violence between Abubakar Nurmagomedov and Gadzhi Omargadzhiev. Abubakar Nurmagomedov, he's making his return after not fighting for over a year. His last fight was a successful one for him. He beat Jared Gooden by decision. It was one of the better performances of his career. Nurmagomedov is looking to build momentum in the UFC now, as that was his first win in the organization. Nurmagomedov has already lost in his UFC debut, so he doesn't have to defend a perfect UFC record or anything, and the hype and spotlight is off of him a little bit. Even before Nurmagomedov came to the UFC, he had a mishap losing as a huge favorite over Pavel Kush, so he had dropped the ball in the past, and hopefully now he's at the level he needs to be where he can go on a run. He's been killing himself in this training camp, working with Islam Makhachev ahead of his title shot, Belal Muhammad, who's trying to make a statement on this card, Zubaira Tukhugov, Habib, and all those guys. So he's going to be ready as far as his training camp goes. And he's light on his feet with a really nice jab. He works off the jab, and he has really nice pull counters with the hooks, big right hand. He has nice check hooks, and his hands are fast. And he has stinging power. He is hittable with shots at the middle, uppercuts, knees. Sometimes he can get clipped as he pulls backwards, and he does stand heavy on his lead legs. So his defense could be a little bit improved, but he is sharp with his hands, and he looks significantly better with the striking against Jared Gooden. And he's a great wrestler. He has great timing on his level changes, good chain wrestling. On top, he has solid control, ground and pound. He has been submitted a couple times. One time he did get hurt and then got submitted, so that one it wasn't really due to a grappling error, really. Perhaps it was more due to him just being rocked. And the other one against David Zawada, he did get submitted off while he was on top, with Zawada on his back. And he has to be aware of the submission threat of Omar Gadzhiev. Omar Gadzhiev has shown good leg attacks in previous fights, and I feel like Nurmagomedov should probably just try to keep it on the feet and strike with him here, because I think he has a bigger advantage there. Cardio-wise, Nurmagomedov has solid cardio. He won't gas more than likely. And his opponent, Omar Gadzhiev, had his perfect record snapped in his UFC debut. He was 13-0 coming off of a win on the Contender Series, but got a really stiff entry into the UFC against Caio Borralho. Borralho is a fighter who's someone to watch, and he fights up at 185 pounds, whereas Omar Gadzhiev is going to be competing at 170 on Saturday. It's going to be the first time dropping down to 170 for Omar Gadzhiev, so we have to see how the weight cut goes for him and how he performs at that weight class. But Omar Gadzhiev, he's pretty light on his feet as well. He could switch stances, decent movement. He will feint, throw some kicks out there, and look for his overhands and double leg. He gets wild, and he can overextend and really expose himself not only for takedowns but for counter punches. In his last fight, he ended up giving his back by overextending and falling over himself, throwing wild punches against Borralho, and kind of looked amateurish on the feet. And I think some of that was due to sustaining an injury. But Omar Gadzhiev is aggressive when he can get on top. And he has good entries and good timing on his doubles when he does hit them. And it's going to be interesting to see if he could take down someone the caliber of Abu Bakr on the ground. And Omar Gadzhiev in his last fight fought a true BJJ black belt. And he was exposed a little bit. He got swept and got controlled and wasn't really effective with his grappling. But in previous fights, he's shown good chokes, and he's got a knee bar victory before. But he does have a padded record, so a lot of his early fights are not great indicators of him being able to submit superior opponents or control them on the ground. And I feel like he's not as good with his grappling as his record indicates, because a lot of his wins are against the low-level guys. With this fight, I think that Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov should keep it standing, and he'll be the more polished striker by far. He has way better hands, and if he could stop the takedowns, pressure, work combos behind the jab, he should be able to piece up Omar Gadzhiev. I'm going to predict he's able to do that. If Omar Gadzhiev can get the takedowns, get on top and dominate, then there will be that way he could win with that. But I'll be really impressed if he can just out-grapple Abu Bakr like that. So I got to go with Abu Bakr to win a decision with his boxing. And up next here, we have a really interesting fight between Zubaira Tukhugov and Lucas Almeida. Lucas Almeida, he's a bad mofo. He's a technical brawler, and he showed what he had in his first UFC fight. Went in there, got the upset, got a big knockout over Mike Trizano. He had a really fun fight against Daniel Zellhuber on the Contender Series as well, where he lost that fight, but he won the first round, had a good first round, and then slowed down a little bit. But Lucas Almeida, he has really good pressure. Great job slipping and countering with the left hook. His left hook is nasty. He has huge power on it. He was able to sit down Mike Trizano and finish him with that left hook in his last fight. And he'll throw really fast and nice 3-2s and 2-3s. Not super active with his body shots, but he's pretty good at going to the body to open up his headshots with the punches. Nice leg kicks. He has good round kicks to the body and the head. And he has nice flying knees. He is hittable, but he's durable. He comes for war. He likes to fight off the front foot. And when he isn't pushed back, he's not as high volume. He'll try to land some counters, but not as active. And he has 9 knockouts. He's never been finished, so very tough, and he has some power. And his grappling is a little bit questionable. I believe he has average takedown defense. Doesn't seem like he's the greatest off of his back. He will just wait until he could try to explode back up to his feet. In his loss to Daniel Zellhuber, he was taken down several times. On the Brazilian regional scene, he was taken down several times. And he has to be working heavily on his takedown defense and his get-ups here, because Tukhugov is the best wrestler that Almeida has ever faced. But Lucas Almeida, when fighters force him to wrestle, does tend to slow down a little bit more. He's able to push through fatigue and get second wins, but this is a hard matchup for Almeida on paper. For Zubaira Tukhugov, he's another fighter training with Habib and the crew for this fight. He's been in the UFC for years now. He's 5-2-1, which is pretty solid, but inactivity has plagued his career. He won his last fight against a solid prospect in Ricardo Ramos, but That fight was nearly a year ago. To me, he's taken a step down in competition here a little bit. He's been fighting opponents like Renato Moicano, Laurent Murphy, Akeem Dawodu, Ramos. All those fighters have been ranked or close to the rankings in the UFC, whereas Almeida is still unproven. Tukhugov also has the advantage of fighting in the Middle East and fighting 2 times in a row already in Abu Dhabi previously to this fight. He has a good chance to win 2 fights in a row here for the first time since 2015 and hopefully get, some momentum going in his career and get some fights back to back. But Tukhugov on the feet is light on his feet, fast hands, bounces in out of range. He looks for that jab overhand or jab straight right. His left hook is nice. He is good at slipping and ripping in the pocket. He throws heat and his head movement is good. In this fight, I think he's going to be trying to look for those counters, and I think those counters could pay a lot of dividends for him. If he lands clean, he could definitely get the knockout. Almeida is hittable and leave himself a little bit exposed there, but he is fighting a guy that also can counterpunch with the height and reach advantage and a durable guy that wants to brawl. So Tukhugov just has to not get overzealous, not give Almeida that brawl that he wants, be more polished, land the cleaner, heavier shots more consistently, and stay sharp. And if he wants to make this fight easy, he's going to wrestle. He can fall in love with the striking, but when he wants to, he has pretty good wrestling, and he can control really well on the ground. He has good ability to chain wrestle, and if he can get an early takedown on Almeida, wear on him a little bit, I think he can have less to worry about on the feet and the stand-up for the rest of the fight. I believe he's going to control on top pretty easily if he does get the takedown. And also, he has some issues with cardio, but if he can rest on top, then I don't think that's going to be a problem. And Tukhugov is going to have the advantage of being acclimated to fight in the Middle East, not having to travel. So that may even up the cardio department between him and Almeida. And like I said, he's fought back-to-back times in Abu Dhabi, so he should feel right at home here, fighting here for the 3rd time in a row. And Zubaira, I think, should be a bigger favorite here than what he is. He's fought superior fighters recently, and I believe he is way more experienced and a little bit more polished on the feet and in the grappling. I like Lucas Almeida. I bet on him and won on him as a dog in his last fight, but in this one, he's facing a guy who I believe will be able to land big punches on him, maybe hurt him and knock him out, and be able to out-wrestle him. Calf kicks and left hooks are going to be what Almeida looks to implement, I believe, but I think Tukhugov is going to be able to control the center, not let Almeida get the pressure game going that he likes to get, not get pushed back, land his own counters, wrestle early and often, hopefully, and make the fight easier. He has the home crowd advantage. He should win this fight. A loss here would be a big setback for Tukhugov, in my opinion. I think Zubaira can get the knockout with the counterpunch here or win a decision. He isn't a huge finisher, and Almeida's never been finished, so I'll say he wins via decision. But I think you could even maybe look at targeting Tukhugov by knockout as a small bet at a decent price tag. But yeah, I'm going to go with Tukhugov in this one. I just think he's too polished, too experienced. And Almeida's going to be a good fighter. I think he's going to stick around in the UFC, but I think this is a little bit too much too soon for him here. So Tukhugov, I'm going to say he wins a decision. And in this next fight here, we got 2 ranked light heavyweight fighters. They're going to be fighting to move up in the rankings here. And both Nikita Krylov and Volkan Oezdemir, they picked up victories on the same card in their last fight, and it snapped 2-fight losing streaks for both. Oezdemir got a big win. He upset Paul Craig, who is on a tear. And Nikita Krylov, he ran through Alexander Gustafsson in a little over a minute in kind of a less impressive win because of Gustafsson's current run. But both of these fighters have had performances that make you think they can compete with the best in the world, but bad performances as well. And the winner of this fight will be in the mix, and I think the loser is going to kind of get relegated to gatekeeper status. Nikita Krylov, he's still very young. He's only 30 years old. I feel like he's been around for a long time. So he's someone I believe that still has a little bit more time. Both these guys are relatively young for light heavyweight. Even 33 isn't too old. But I think the loser of this fight is going to really have to rebuild, win 2, 3, 4 fights in a row before they could maybe get a top 5 opponent again. And I think the winner of this fight will be in line for something close to a top 5. So it's a big fight. And for Volkan Oezdemir, this is going to be the second Russian he's going to fight in Abu Dhabi. The last time he went out there, he fought Magomed Ankalaev, lost by decision. So he's going to be looking for vengeance. And he's also looking to avenge his training partner, his friend, Alex Gustafsson. Obviously, he spent a lot of time training over there at All Stars Training Center. And Gustafsson, that's his gym. And Nikita Krylov will be fighting for the first time on Fight Island. And he's coming off that win, but he is coming off 2 losses before that. So he still needs to get a couple wins, get some momentum together. He actually lost a recent fight to Magomed Ankalaev as well. So him and Oezdemir had a
similar opponent. But yeah, both these guys have very different styles. Volkan, he's a pressure fighter. He looks to, close the distance, brawl, throw hooks, uppercuts, knees, elbows, be in the pocket. He has thunderous leg kicks, very durable, comes forward, great cardio, keeps the pressure on guys, and slowly accumulates damage through the leg kicks, his power punches. And he does have the power to knock guys out, but I feel like his power is a little bit overrated. He got some early knockouts in the UFC against guys like Jimmy Manoa, guys like Misha Cirkunov, who are definitely very chinny. And I don't think that recently he's shown that same type of power. But in this fight, Oezdemir, he's going to have to chase down Nikita Krylov, who's going to be looking to stick and move with long punches, with kicks. Krylov, he has good footwork, dangerous body kicks, head kicks. He throws nice straight punches, good jab, high kick, good jab, body kick. And his hands are improving. He put Alex Gustafsson to sleep with his hands in his last fight. He has shown a tendency to exchange in the pocket, or hesitancy, excuse me. And he is hittable in close range. We saw in his fight with Glover Teixeira, there was a lot of running from Krylov in that fight. And Oezdemir, I feel like we'll be able to beat him up in the boxing range. Oezdemir has to worry about the leg kicks of Krylov, and he has to worry about just not letting Krylov just touch him with kicks and move. And Oezdemir, he's obviously going to be looking for his own leg kicks, trying to slow down that movement of Krylov, get him to exchange in the pocket. And if he can get him in that pocket to the fight, I think he's going to beat him there. And Krylov, he's going to try to take Oezdemir down, no doubt. I feel like Krylov has good takedowns against the cage, especially. And if he can get Oezdemir there, I think he could take him down. But Oezdemir is hard to back up. His takedown defense has improved immensely in the open mat. And sometimes he will kind of, if you shoot a single, sometimes he'll kind of turn his back. And I feel like Krylov at that point can maybe jump on the back. So I think that he might try to go single to back take. So Oezdemir has to be very aware of that. But Krylov is the better grappler. I think if he wins, he's going to hit multiple takedowns or maybe get the back and get a rear naked choke. But early in the fight, I think Krylov may have success sticking and moving, but I don't think he's going to be able to do that for the entirety of the fight. I think Oezdemir's pressure, his ability to chop the legs and continue to throw big shots is going to slow down Krylov, make him hesitant, and make him really want to hunt those takedowns. And I think if he can't get the takedowns, I could see him getting a little bit tired. And I see Oezdemir eventually wearing on him. I think Oezdemir can use his pressure, big hooks, leg kicks to get Krylov tired, slow his movement, stuff the takedowns, and then beat him up on the inside or TKO him. I think Krylov is going to get more and more tired as Oezdemir defends his takedowns and pushes him backwards. Unless Krylov can land a big head kick or a straight shot that knocks Oezdemir out, I see the pressure getting to him. I think Oezdemir has the cardio edge, the durability edge. I think he's going to be the fighter coming forward, which will lead to him winning a close decision on optics. I don't think he's going to dominate the fight. I think Krylov will do decent striking off the back foot, and I see him being competitive. He might even get a takedown and bank around that way, but I just think optics-wise, Oezdemir is going to be throwing the heavier punches, coming forward the whole time, and I think that he's proved his takedown defense enough that he can keep it standing. I trust him more fight IQ-wise to win the fight. Even on the ground, I think Volkan can compete, especially if he's in top position. He proved in his last fight that he could stay safe in one of the most dangerous submission artist guards in the entire UFC, and Paul Craig. And Nikita Krylov, he was submitted by Paul Craig. But one thing about Nikita Krylov is a lot of his losses are by submission. So Volkan Oezdemir is not going to have that ability to submit Krylov. And Krylov has only been knocked out one time, so he is fairly durable. Oezdemir, he's only been knocked out one time as well. But I just feel like as long as Oezdemir avoids being on his back for multiple rounds, he's going to get the win here. I think just his pressure and volume is going to be more than Krylov's, and he's going to be the one going forward. It's going to look better to the judges, and he's going to sneak that decision. In this next fight here, we got two newer guys to the UFC with Makhmud Muradov and Caio Borralho. Both of them have already made a statement already in their UFC careers. Makhmud Muradov, he had his hype taken by GM3 in his last fight. He came into that fight a winner of 14 in a row. He had 2 fights in a row in the UFC where he got knockouts, and he was a minus 600 favorite on the money line, but ended up dropping the ball and got submitted in the second round. But he has a chance to snatch all of that hype back here, though, as he takes on a streaking Caio Borralho. Borralho, he's looked awesome since joining the UFC banner. He had 2 fights in the Contender Series. One was at light heavyweight. He was able to get a finish at the light heavyweight fight, win a decision. And so far in the UFC, he's gone 2-0 with 2 dominant decision wins. And Borralho works with Damian Maia and a plethora of world-class grapplers in Brazil. It shows, and he's not lost fights since 2015. Currently on a 12-fight unbeaten streak. And Muradov has stepped towards ranked competition for Borralho. If he wins impressively, he could be staring at a big name across from him in the cage for his next fight. And yeah, I mean, this is another one of these contrast to style type matchups. With Makhmud Muradov, we got a guy that's very explosive. He's tall, rangy, long. In this fight, he's actually not going to have as pronounced as a reach advantage as he usually has. It's only going to be half an inch. But Muradov, he has really fast feet. Does a good job moving around on the outside, then darting in with these nice straight shots, good straight punch counters. And sometimes, though, he can get real loopy and wide. And his striking is not all that technical. It's more about just him having speed, power, the ability to get in, get out quickly, close that distance, land, and get out. But he leaves a lot of openings to be countered when he closes the distance. Oezdemir was able to hurt him with the left hook multiple times, drop him, and then submit him. And he just leaves himself susceptible to a lot of counters. But the thing with Muradov is the speed and power kind of is an eraser for that, because guys get a little bit hesitant because they know, I mean, if I step into counter, I'm going to be potentially clipped with a knockout shot myself. So Muradov is definitely a dangerous fighter, and his takedown defense is pretty good, but sometimes he can overextend, put himself in bad positions, get taken down, get held against the cage. And like I said, in his last fight, he got dropped or got hurt and then got submitted. So he does have a little bit of deficiencies when he actually does get to the ground. It seemed like he gave his back immediately to GM3, looking to get up both times that he got taken down. And the second time he gave his back, he got submitted with the rear naked choke. And with Caio Borralho, we have a guy that I think is not quite as dangerous as GM3 on the ground, but he has excellent control. And if he gets the back or gets into a dominant position, I don't see Muradov being able to work back up to his feet. But Muradov in this fight, he has to pressure, stay, with effective pressure, feints, in and out movement, back up Borralho and throw straight shots. Don't throw looping punches. Get him where, he's backed up towards the fence, and then try to explode in with a combination, because Borralho, he has good striking off the front foot. He has good in and out movement, and he also can close distance quickly, has decent kicks, decent punches. But Borralho, when you can press him backwards, his defense isn't as good. He'll start to float his chin. He holds his hands low. He doesn't look as comfortable. And Borralho's a good athlete, so he has good speed, and he's good at kind of slipping and finding one counter shot. But if you can prolong those exchanges in the pocket, Borralho can become a little bit ugly with the striking and become pretty hittable. But the thing about Caio Borralho is he's always looking to time that double when you pressure him. So it's hard to fight a guy like that because he's fast with his in and out movement. He can throw kicks from the outside, be in and out, come forward, and kind of just point fight you with his striking. And then if you pressure him and try to make it more of a war, then he just level changes, takes you down, and can control you. And Borralho isn't really that much of a submission artist. I don't know if he just doesn't have a great submission game, or he just feels like he's more worried about controlling for MMA. But you see in his fights that he's not all that worried about finishing. Even when he gets to the back, he's more worried about just keeping the position rather than locking in the chokes and things like that. Like his last fight, he fought Armen Petrosian, who's a kickboxer, and he got the back multiple times. You would think against someone of that acumen, he would have been able to lock in that rear naked choke or get some sort of submission. But it ended up just being him just controlling the position and not doing much with it in terms of actual submission danger. So I think that Borralho, a lot of people are going to be thinking that he's going to go in here and get the finish and get a submission win because of GM3 submitting Makhmud Muradov pretty easily when it hit the ground in their last fight. But I think GM3 is much more active going for the submissions than Borralho is. And Muradov has been submitted 4 times, so there definitely is a possibility that he gets submitted again. But I think Borralho, from what I've seen, he's not really that active. The last time that Borralho actually got a submission was in 2019, and it was against an inexperienced opponent. And 5 of Borralho's last 6 wins are decisions. So the pick for me is going to be Borralho by decision. I think he's going to be able to get into dominant positions on the ground and control really easily and win a fairly dominant fight. I just feel like his fight IQ is better. He's not going to engage in a war with Muradov. He's not going to allow Muradov to back him up and stay stagnant against the cage. He's going to be moving a lot. he's going to get Muradov to have to come to him, and then he's going to level change, take him down, and Muradov makes the mistakes that he does pressuring, and I think he'll be able to control on the ground rather easily. Muradov always is a live underdog in his fights because he has one-punch knockout power. He has finishing ability with his kicks and his knees, and he's going to go for it. He's always dangerous, and he's a good athlete. So Muradov, he always is dangerous in fights, but I think this is Borralho's fight to lose. I think he has the wider skill set, and I think he has the better fight IQ. He has, in my opinion, more ways to win this fight, so I got to go with Borralho to get the victory here, and I'm going to say that he wins by decision. And headlining the prelims, we got two of the better welterweights in the world with Belal Muhammad taking on Sean Brady. And Sean Brady and Belal Muhammad, they've been both wreaking havoc on the division of late, doing it in similar fashion. Muhammad had a lot of striking battles early in his UFC fights. He's always fought to a smart game plan, and in his last two fights, he had opponents where he should have taken him down, and he did. He got takedowns and beat Vicente Luque and Stephen Thompson, who are two of the best strikers in the UFC. And Sean Brady, he's always been known for that heavy wrestling, grappling style. Brady's not fought in almost a year, but he's already proved that he's one of the best grapplers in the UFC. He dominated Michael Chiesa on the mat last November. He even took out Craig Jones in a grappling match in December of 2021. And Brady, after the Chiesa fight, had no surgery, so that's why he's not fought in a while. But he's confident. He's been calling out the top names, and he's getting what he asked for, too, because he's fighting Belal Muhammad, another top 5 opponent. The winner of this fight sets themselves up for a number 1 contender fight, in my opinion. I can't see the winner of this fight having to win again more than once before they get the title shot. Brady is already 5-0 in the UFC. Muhammad is on an 8-fight unbeaten streak dating back to 2019. And this is definitely one of the biggest fights you can make at 170 pounds. Sean Brady, he's the leader of that Renzo Gracie Philly team, who I believe should get consideration for Gym of the Year in 2022. Renzo Gracie Philly has not produced any champions yet, but Sean Brady is knocking on that door, and they have other guys doing work in the UFC like Pat Sabatini, Jeremiah Wells, Andre Petrosky. Sean Brady brings a classic Renzo Gracie Philly style too. He's extremely physical, strong grappler with solid wrestling and incredible jiu-jitsu. And Belal Muhammad continues to get these interesting stylistical matchups from the UFC. Recently, he fought guys like Wonder Boy, who's a specialist in the striking realm, and Muhammad took him down at will. He fought Damian Maia, who's a BJJ wizard, so he kept it standing and beat him up. And now he's getting another fighter in Sean Brady, who has okay striking, but is a bit of a specialist too when it comes to him wanting to wrestle predominantly and use his grappling. And Muhammad has had the perfect training camp to deal with someone like Brady. He's been working with Islam, Habib, and those guys. And if you can find better MMA wrestlers than that, you should call the UFC and give them their names. But having already fought the current champ, I'm sure Muhammad is extremely motivated, sees that title right over the horizon. And he's going to try to sprawl and brawl in this fight, keep it standing, I think. And Sean Brady is a good but not great striker. He has fast hands, good power, a really vicious left hook, really good 2-3s and 3-2s. He tries to throw heat and counter with 1-2s, 3-2s, and really tries to get fighters to back off with the power that he throws. He doesn't like to sit in the pocket and exchange too much. He doesn't throw too much volume. He tends to load up on his shots when he gets pressured. And an opponent with a good jab, good straight punches can clip him up a little bit. We saw him struggle in some rounds, even though he's undefeated. He lost the first round to Ismail Nardiev. He got backed up. He was unable to get the takedowns, and he got outstruck on the feet. And Brady also had moments in his fights against Michael Chiesa and Court McGee where he was backed up and touched up a little bit. But for Belal Muhammad, I would say he has to stay in Sean Brady's face, try to control the center, pressure and push Sean Brady back. Belal also try to throw a lot of feints, try to get Brady to open up with the left hook or the right hand and then counter the counter. And I think Muhammad is going to try to mix in some wrestling too. So if he can get Brady backing up with the feints to get striking, level change, surprise him, and take him down, that could be a pivotal point in him winning the fight or kind of taking over in the fight. But I think that, for Sean Brady, he's going to have to get in his head that he's going to have to strike a little bit in this fight. I don't think he's just going to be able to go in there and grind out Belal Muhammad over 3 rounds with ease and just hold him down. I don't really see that happening. I think he's going to have faith in his hands and throw a little bit more, be a little bit more active, because I think that he does actually have faster hands, more powerful hands than Belal Muhammad. But Belal Muhammad, he obviously has a lot more rounds striking in real fights, and he's more comfortable there. And I expect him to try to keep it standing for the majority of that fight. I think that Belal Muhammad, he has that good pressure game, and he feints a lot. He'll switch stances. He has those heavy calf kicks and decent hands. And he's going to be trying to rip the body, come up to the head, throw a lot of volume, mix in those uppercuts, and try to throw strikes that make Brady not want to get takedowns. But Sean Brady is an amazing wrestler, man, especially against the cage. Really good chain wrestling there, really good trips. And in the open mat, Brady, I think, will struggle to get takedowns, and Muhammad needs to pressure and try to hold the center. But if Brady could push Muhammad back, I do see him getting the takedowns. And Brady has really good top control. He likes to sit in half guard and stay really heavy, try to work his ground and pound to open up the submission attempts. And he has good arm triangles, a really nice guillotine. When he can get the back, he has good back control. And if he can get on top, he's usually going to control that round and win that round. But we have seen Brady in later rounds get a little bit tired. I do think Belal Muhammad has the superior cardio. And for Belal Muhammad, I do think he has the takedown defense to probably keep it standing for the majority of the fight. He might lose a round where he gets taken down, but I think for the large majority of the fight, it's going to be more stand-up. And I think Belal's going to try to just, mix it up, be tricky, and kind of outwit Sean Brady on the feet. But I honestly think that Sean Brady is going to be able to land the heavier punches, the cleaner left hooks, 2-3s, 3-2s, get the better of certain exchanges. I could see Muhammad having success with the volume and maybe landing, a lot of volume and it being a close fight. But I think Brady's going to land the more eye-popping shots. And I feel like Brady also is going to be the guy that could maybe take a round with the grappling. I don't see Belal Muhammad, even though I said he could maybe try to get a takedown. Even if he gets it, I don't think he's going to be able to control Sean Brady like Sean Brady could potentially control Belal. And yeah, it's interesting though, because I do worry about the cardio quite a bit for Brady. If he falls off the cliff midway through the second round, Belal could definitely take over, because we've already seen cardio issues from a guy like Sean Brady. He's going to have to travel over to Abu Dhabi. So that's, I think, definitely makes the fight closer. Belal Muhammad has been there for a while now, and he's, I believe, a cardio machine. So I don't think it's going to affect him to travel too much. But I just think Sean Brady on the feet can compete and do well there. I think he can win in certain exchanges. I think he can land the heavier punches. Even though I think Belal Muhammad may have the better cardio and kind of have to make Sean Brady weather a storm in the third round. I think the first two rounds, I think Brady could maybe steal one round by some cage pushing and maybe a couple takedowns and mat returns, and then maybe win another round by getting Belal Muhammad thinking about the takedowns, landing a big left hook or a few big combinations, big 3-2s, 2-3s, and winning that round pretty close. And then I would say Muhammad maybe takes the later round, like a third round. But I still think Sean Brady is going to do enough to get it done, move to 16-0. But man, I mean, this is a hell of a fight. Belal Muhammad, Sean Brady, something has to give here. Both these guys, I feel like, are extremely confident that they're top of their games in terms of technique, skill. They're, I believe Muhammad is kind of a little bit older, 34. Brady's 29. He has more time to stick in the game and maybe get there if he loses this fight. And Belal's a guy that is super determined, man. I mean, you can't really measure heart. You can't measure how much someone is working, outside of the cage before fight night. And Belal Muhammad is one of the hardest workers, and that's why he's been able to maximize his potential. But I think his run is going to come to an end here against Sean Brady. I think Sean Brady's going to be able to take a close decision here in a good fight where it'll be maybe a little bit sloppy striking, but I think Brady will get the better of it. It'll be entertaining, and then I think he might be able to steal one round with the grappling. So got to go with Sean Brady here. For this next fight, we got a women's fight between Katlyn Chookagian and Manon Fiorot. And Katlyn Chookagian, she's basically fought every girl in the division except for Manon Fiorot. So this matchup was pretty much inevitable. Chookagian actually called out Fiorot in the cage after her last victory. And they had a fight scheduled for September. The September fight was going to be in Fiorot's home country of France. So now they're going to be competing on more neutral ground. I don't know what happened to Chookagian, but she suffered an undisclosed injury that caused her to withdraw. It's been almost 2 months since they were supposed to fight September 3rd. So Chookagian should have had ample time to recover. Chookagian, already after losing in a non-competitive matchup with Valentina, probably will not get a title shot, but if Manon Fiorot is impressive, I do expect her to potentially be in line for a title shot. And Fiorot is that new hotness and the favorite to get the job done here. But Chookagian has a ton of experience. She has more UFC fights than Fiorot has total fights. And Chookagian can compete with anyone if she can continue to pick up these wins over these prospects. At some point, people have to recognize her as a potential all-time great 125er for females, even though she never won the belt. I think this is a huge fight for Katlyn Chookagian in terms of her legacy, because right now I still feel like a lot of people still think of Katlyn Chookagian as that boring girl that picks up decisions, and they don't really think of her that highly, even though she's picked up some real high-level wins. If she can go out there and beat Manon Fiorot as the underdog and get a dominant win or even a win in general, I think that'll go a long way in terms of people starting to really appreciate what Katlyn Chookagian has been able to do over these years that she's been in the UFC. I mean, she's 11-4 in 15 UFC fights, and I feel like she deserves a little bit more respect than she gets. But Manon Fiorot is a tough out, and she's going to be facing a girl that's, tall, long, rangy. And the Beast isn't a proper nickname for Manon Fiorot because she may be the best athlete in the entire division. On the feet, she likes to be all the way in or all the way out. Good lateral footwork, in and out movement. She dart in and darts out with 1-2s, 3-2s. She has fast hands and she'll throw heat. She also uses her lead leg side kick almost as a jab to try to keep the distance. And if you get inside on her, she will get a little bit spastic and just throw heavy punches, try to get fighters to back away. And Fiorot is used to being the taller opponent. If you look at Fiorot's career, she's actually only had one fight, amateur or pro, where an opponent was taller than her. And that person was Leah McCourt, and Fiorot lost that fight. That fight was at 135 pounds, and McCourt missed weight for the fight. So there were some other disadvantages Fiorot had outside of the height. But I think it's worth noting that she's never beaten an opponent taller than her, and Katlyn Chookagian is taller. And Manon Fiorot does not have the best defense to me. She floats her chin out there. She holds her hands low. She'll pull back with her chin right in the air. And that's risky against someone like Katlyn Chookagian, who's long. Good job of setting up her high kicks with feints, with a double jab. And if Chookagian could back up Fiorot, get her to pull back with a feint or a jab, then unleash that head kick, she could land flush. We saw Jennifer Maia land a head kick on Manon Fiorot, who's a much shorter girl with less kick dexterity than Katlyn Chookagian. And Fiorot also drops her hands when she throws punches in the pocket. I think the jab at Chookagian could be a big factor. And Fiorot is susceptible to leg kicks. She had a ton of them against Mayra Bueno Silva. I think on the feet, Katlyn Chookagian, with their pressure, her length, her boxing, her feints, and combos, will actually have a slight edge on Fiorot. So I think Fiorot is going to need to mix it up and wrestle here. With Katlyn Chookagian, we have a girl that I think is an underrated striker. She's super long, rangy. She has some elite level boxing. She can switch stance, throw a double jab too. She's getting a lot, in my opinion, more recently in her last few fights. She's gotten a lot more comfortable letting go with their combinations, throwing with more power, and throwing, more shots that are more impactful. Before in her career, she did kind of get that rap where she was throwing a lot at the air and she was kind of a runner. And she still kind of has that style. I think in this fight, she's going to implement that similar game plan. But she has, in recent fights, sat down more, landed big shots, big punches, and been a lot more better with her offense in terms of actually landing and doing damage. And I think the kicks could be a big factor in this fight if it stays standing. I think the leg kicks, the body kicks, setting up the head kicks by going low with the kicks for Chookagian early and then coming up high, along with the jab, just trying to touch Fiorot. She tries to come inside. And you just have to take advantage of the defensive errors that Fiorot makes. And Fiorot is super beastly, like her nickname says, so she does throw heat and she throws very fast. So if she connects clean on Chookagian with some punches, then I think she could get her respect. But Chookagian is very durable. I've never seen anyone knock her out. I mean, she did get finished with the body shots against Andrade, but not any headshot knockouts that I've seen. And, I feel like Katlyn Chookagian can make competitive on the feet. But Manon Fiorot is a good wrestler. She's very big, strong for the weight. She has good timing on her body lock takedowns, good clinch control against the cage. Her doubles are not bad either. Sometimes she could shoot the double from too far out, but she's gotten a lot of takedowns in the UFC and been able to dominate with her grappling the majority of the time. On top, Fiorot has good control. She is an elite on the ground. I think Chookagian may struggle to get back up to her feet if she is taken down against Fiorot, though, and I do think Fiorot is going to be looking to mix it up, hit takedowns, put Katlyn Chookagian against the fence and try to stop Chookagian from kicking. Maybe make her a little bit worried to kick by catching her kick and taking her down. And Fiorot, her takedown defense is not really proven. I doubt it'll get tested here. She was briefly taken down by Jennifer Maia, but was able to reverse position. And strength-wise, I think Fiorot has a big advantage, so that's another reason why I think she should use the grappling. But Cardio-wise, I do think Fiorot does slow down a little bit. I think she doesn't have the greatest cardio. I would give the edge in the cardio to Katlyn Chookagian. And with this fight being in Abu Dhabi, that's another interesting wrinkle. Both these girls have had to travel a pretty decent amount, and we're going to see who that affects more. But in terms of the grappling for Chookagian, I feel like her takedown defense is a little bit subpar, and I do feel like she can get controlled against the cage and taken down in this fight. But she is, I believe, a brown belt under John Danaher, and her jiu-jitsu is pretty good. I mean, she does a good job of staying safe with her full guard. I think in this fight, if she fights first, she should attack the legs, go for leg locks, try to create sweeps, because we saw Jennifer Maia be effective with that. And you know anything about John Danaher, you know the leg locks are on point with that team. And she isn't training with them now. Obviously, Danaher has moved on from that camp, or from New York, New Jersey area. But yeah, man, I still think that she still has some great partners to train jiu-jitsu with, and she has that background. And I think she is the better jiu-jitsu fighter. But if she just ends up getting held down on her back or held against the cage, then Fiorot could win a boring decision. And I kind of feel like Fiorot is going to try to, slow the fight down and really use her grappling to just control and take the fight that way. And I feel like she's going to be able to probably do it. I just think she has the strength advantage on Chookagian and the wrestling advantage. I don't think Chookagian is good enough off her back to threaten enough to get back up to her feet or threaten submissions to win off bottom. So I think that Chookagian is just going to spend too much time against the cage and on the ground. I think the striking is going to be competitive, and I think Chookagian is actually going to have the slight edge and surprise some people with their striking. But I just think that Manon Fiorot is going to be able to use her wrestling and more her strength and kind of just be able to stall out a victory with some control time.
And now we're getting to the creme de la creme here, man. We got this fight. This is a gem of a fight, man. Beneil Dariush taking on Mateusz Gamrot. And Beneil Dariush, he's one of the most underrated and underappreciated fighters in the UFC right now. He's had a lot of ups and downs in the UFC. He's been with the company since 2014, but currently he's won 7 fights in a row. Looking to pull a Charles Oliveira type title run. Beneil, I think, never was down as bad as Charles was, and he always was in the rankings for the most part throughout his career, but a lot of people have forgotten about when he got knocked out by Edson Barbosa, went to a draw with Evan Dunham, and then got knocked out by Alex Hernandez in a 3-fight span. Dariush was even contemplating retirement after the Hernandez loss, but he picked himself up off the canvas, and he hasn't lost since. He went on a 4-fight win streak, or a 4-fight finish streak after beating Thiago Moises by decision. 2 of those finishes were over Scott Holtzman and Drakkar Klose, and they were knockout of the year contenders. And they got him in the mix. He took out a tough Diego Ferreira, who was also on a 6-fight winning streak at the time. And then he beat Tony Ferguson last May. And since then, Dariush, he had a tough time staying healthy. He suffered an ankle injury. He was preparing to fight Islam Makhachev. That fight was going to be in February. And being so high in the rankings, it's hard to just throw him in as a short notice replacement or against just anyone. And that led to a frustrating wait for Dariush, who I think has been healthy for a little while now, winning the fight. But finally, after a year and 5 months, they're giving Dariush a fight. He's going to be fighting Mateusz Gamrot. And Mateusz Gamrot has not been in the UFC very long, but his pedigree outside the UFC, coupled with his performances since getting in the organization, granted him a quick climb to the top of the division. Gamrot has only had 5 UFC fights in comparison to Dariush's 20. But before coming into the UFC, Gamrot was a 2-division KSW champion. He was already 17-0. He did have some shine knocked off him in his UFC debut when he lost split decision. But since then, he's won 4 fights in a row. Most recently, he defeated Arman Tsarukyan in a main event, which got him in the mix for a title shot. And the fight with Tsarukyan was incredible. It was a Fight of the Year candidate. So if Gamrot can have another action-packed fight, come out the winner, I could see him being 1 fight away, if not next for the title after Alex Volkanovski. I personally think it's crazy that the UFC is granting Alex Volkanovski the immediate title shot against the winner, if what Dana's saying is true, because if Beneil Dariush beats Gamrot and makes it 8 in a row, what more does the guy have to do to get the title shot? But Beneil Dariush and Mateusz Gamrot, they're both high-level grapplers, so the scrambles and groundwork, much like Gamrot's last fight, will be amazing to watch. On the feet, Mateusz Gamrot is very mobile. He likes to switch stances, feint a lot. His best weapons do tend to come from southpaw, but he tries to get a lot of fighters to chase him so he can hit that low single. Good job of working that jab or the lead hook. And basically he tries to, throw the jab or throw feints to get guys to throw at him so he can counter with pull 2s. And he has decent 1-2s. And he'll stay active with the kicks. He'll throw leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, some front kicks. But really not a powerful striker. He just tries to chip away. You stay active enough to keep you honest and then work the takedown. I feel Dariush will win that battle on the feet long term, and Dariush is going to be the fighter going forward, landing the heavier shots on the feet. So Gamrot's definitely going to want to get this to the ground. Mateusz Gamrot, he has super fun wrestling. He has one of the best low singles in the game, which makes it almost virtually impossible to counter with a knee or an uppercut. So it's a very safe takedown. And he has very good chain wrestling. His scrambling ability is top notch. With that single leg, he has a lot of ways he could finish the takedowns from there. But that's really what you have to worry about. He's not really going to try to take you down against a cage or go double or anything. Doesn't really have a great body lock game. But he also has a high-level BJJ acumen, but he uses that more in terms of trying to control you on top. He doesn't really have a ton of submissions in MMA. His takedown defense scrambling ability is really, really good. It was on full display in his last fight. He's absolutely exceptional and almost impossible to hold down on the ground. Against Beneil Dariush, he's going to be up against another man. He's an extremely good grappler, jiu-jitsu guy. I don't think that Gamrot is going to be able to hold down Dariush. I've seen Dariush use omoplatas, leg locks, straight scrambles, and get up, and he's super good at it. I've seen other fighters against Gamrot use those techniques to get back to their feet that I don't think are as good at it as Dariush is. So Gamrot's going to have to be content with knowing that if he gets takedown early, he's probably not going to get much control time. Gamrot's cardio is elite, and he has to weaponize that here. I feel as if if it was a 5-round fight, Gamrot would have a better chance to win. And I do think he's a 5-round fighter. I think he excels in longer fights, but he needs to try to go for a lot of takedowns and really try to get Dariush tired, get his striking a little bit less dangerous, and get Beneil kind of thinking about the takedown so he doesn't throw as much. But for Beneil Dariush, he's a well-rounded southpaw. He has a dangerous striking game in his grappling. He's incredible in his own right. He's a pressure fighter. He's going to be coming forward, tracking down Gamrot. He has a great check hook, nice straight left and overhand left. He's great at pressuring, feigning the level change, keeping fighters off balance, and using his jab or double jab to open up the left hand. He's going to have the reach advantage in this one, which should help. And he throws with ill intent and definitely has the power edge in this fight. He's good at hanging in the pocket. He has exceptional upper body movement, great eyes, good at just sliding right out of the way of punches without moving his feet, staying planted and ready to counter right away, and makes him super dangerous in the pocket and in exchanges. Dariush would throw some heavy kicks as well to the legs, body, and head. He isn't as active as kicker as Mateusz Gamrot, but Dariush makes his kicks count when they land. He's good knees up the middle too. When he targets the body with his lower legs, he's deadly. He dropped Diego Ferreira to the body twice in their fight. And Beneil Dariush also has a wild streak about him. He likes to throw down and get in the mud. That has got him knocked out a couple times, but it's also got him some highlight reel KOs. He had a brutal spinning back fist knockout over Scott Holtzman. Had a really incredible knockout where he got hurt and then just marched forward like a Terminator, caught the car close and knocked him out. And Dariush in this fight needs to keep the pressure, try to back up Gamrot, force bad takedown attempts. Dariush should not have any worries grappling with Gamrot, and if he can get on top, get him tired by hanging on the neck or just stuffing takedowns, then he could sort of take over on the feet and have more effect there. And I do think it'll be good optics for the judges if he can get Gamrot to shoot some bad takedowns, defend him, make him get back up to his feet and be the guy pressuring coming forward. And Beneil Dariush has been using his wrestling and grappling to make fights easy in his last couple wins. He's had matchups against guys he knew he was superior wrestlers then and just pressured, took him down, and controlled him on top. And he has excellent top control, and I think if either fighter will be able to control, it'll be Beneil. I think Dariush in this fight may use some wrestling, but I don't see it being a big part of his game plan. I think Dariush is going to win and make this fight more of a war on the feet. Dariush hasn't fought many wrestlers in his career, and he's hardly been taken down. The times I have seen him briefly on bottom in full guard, he seems super active, will attack submissions to work back up to his feet, has a really, really good leg lock game. He almost got Tony Ferguson in a leg lock. I've seen him attack leg locks against Diego Ferreira and be effective with them to be able to use them to change position. And Dariush has gotten submitted once, which came against Michael Chiesa, where he gave his back in a scramble and got submitted, but I don't see Gamrot posing that type of threat. He is a good jiu-jitsu guy, but he's not someone that's an opportunistic back taker and an opportunistic submission artist like Chiesa. And Beneil Dariush has always had good cardio, but I feel like he's come in even better shape recently. His last fight with, his fight with Diego Ferreira was fought at a very high pace, and Dariush has been getting ready for Islam Makhachev for a while. He should be ready cardiovascularly for a grappling heavy fight to defend a lot of takedowns. Islam's wrestling is completely different than Mateusz Gamrot's, but the fact that he's also southpaw like Gamrot and he wants to take him down a lot and push that wrestling and grappling pace gives me the the feeling that Beneil has a little bit of an advantage in terms of preparation because he's had months to get ready for it. I'm going to go with the veteran here to get the upset. Beneil Dariush, I feel like he's getting disrespected here, and he, rightfully so. I think he deservedly so believes that, and I think he's going to make a statement in this fight, prove his grappling and wrestling acumen, show people that he can compete with the best people in the world on the ground, and then have the better striking in this particular matchup. Gamrot's a fighter I really like. I bet on him. Makhachev as a big underdog in his last fight with Arman Tsarukyan, but I think Dariush is getting disrespected a bit here. I think the grappling is a little bit of a wash, and Dariush clearly has the edge in the stand-up. He has more experience. He has the urgency to win here with his age, tenure in the company, and I think he'll deliver, get the job done, and I see takes a decision 29-28 or 30-27. Man, the great fights just keep coming. In this next one, we got Petr taking on Sean O'Malley, and this is a fight that everyone's been talking about since it came out. I feel like a lot of people have been very opinionated on either side. But Petr is the established guy. Obviously, he's a former UFC champion. His last 3 fights in a row were title fights. He's coming off of, I believe, maybe even his last 4 fights in a row, right? His last 4 fights in a row. And he's coming off of 2 out of 3 losses where he lost Aljamain Sterling. One of those, obviously, was kind of a disputable loss, where it was the DQ loss. The last loss he had to Aljamain Sterling was also very close, but you could say that was the first, I would say, official UFC loss of his career. And now he's getting a humongous fight. I mean, not only does fighting Sean O'Malley probably put more eyes on you than fighting for the title does, but a win raises name value a lot, in my opinion. Some people are saying that Jan has nothing to gain in this one, and I disagree. I think he has a lot to gain. Sean O'Malley is one of the most popular young fighters in the UFC, he brings a fan base with him every time he fights, and now he's getting the chance to prove not only that, he brings the eyes, but he brings the goods. And if Petr can beat him, I think it'll really raise his profile, and I think it'll just give him more fan base in the United States with casual fans. And I think a loss won't even drop him down too far. But if Sean O'Malley could beat Petr, he'll be in a title fight for his next fight, almost unquestionably. I think same could be said for Jan. I think if he wins, he'll probably be in a title fight. And O'Malley is coming off his no contest with Pedro Munoz. Obviously, this is a big step up in competition. Outside of Pedro Munoz, no one else O'Malley has fought really has been super high level for bantamweight. He did beat Holly and Paiva, which is a good win, but Paiva is a guy that more fought at 125 than 135. The 2 times that O'Malley has been in there with top 10 guys, he hasn't been able to get his hand raised yet. He got put out against Chito Vera, and then he eye poked Pedro Munoz, and that fight ended up being a no contest. But he's extremely confident coming into this fight, and stylistically, it's the best matchup for him to win over a top guy. O'Malley doesn't want to fight wrestlers. I mean, that's pretty obvious. He's avoided saying guys' names like Muradov, Ricky Simone like the plague, but Petr is probably not going to come in here and wrestle. He's going to try to box up and hurt O'Malley, kick the legs, probably use his body kicks too, but it'll give Sean O'Malley the ability to have his free-flowing striking. And this fight being 3 rounds also favors O'Malley, I feel. O'Malley doesn't have bad cardio, but he's never been 5 rounds. Petr is a slow starter, and O'Malley tends to start fast. Sometimes O'Malley cannot take damage the greatest, and Petr a slow cooker, and he gets better as the fight continues, slowly breaks guys apart. So I feel like it being 3 rounds in that aspect also favors Sean. And Sean's whole game is predicated on his frame, his length, speed, timing, footwork, really long reach, super fast, straight punches. And it's a similar matchup to Petr had with Corey Sandhagen, but Sean O'Malley is even a little bit taller, a little bit longer. And Sean O'Malley, I think, has that extra pop in his punches that Corey Sandhagen has not shown. I mean, we've seen Sean O'Malley knock guys out, and you could argue maybe it's a level of competition, but I don't think Corey Sandhagen has that same power in his hands that Sean O'Malley does. And you could see people really do respect Sean O'Malley's striking. I mean, you see Chito Vera, Pedro Munoz, they are guys that are, really known for being able to come forward, take a ton of damage. They're willing to get in the pocket and eat shots to give shots. And in the fights with Sean O'Malley, they were a little bit more trepidatious to close the distance, and they were kind of hanging around at range and throwing a lot more leg kicks. And I'm not saying it wasn't a smart game plan to do, but it showed that they definitely had respect for Sean O'Malley's ability to counterpunch and his power. Petr is also a fighter that's notorious for his pressure and methodically pressuring guys, staying forward, eating shots to give shots, and having huge power. So it's going to be interesting to see how Petr plays it, if he's going to show that same level of respect that other guys have shown to O'Malley, or if he's just going to try to close the distance and make it a dogfight right away. But I feel like a lot of people are not giving O'Malley any chance to win this fight, and I just totally disagree with that. I feel like footwork does tend to give Petr Yan issues. I mean, even guys that I don't think have nearly as good of footwork or as good of counter striking as Sean O'Malley, like Aljamain Sterling, have been able to use footwork to kind of frustrate Petr Yan a little bit. And Corey Sandhagen, I feel like, you know, he could have arguably won the first 2 rounds. The second round was close, and the third round, he was winning that round the entire round, and he got dropped and ended up losing the round because of the drop. So that's something that Petr Yan tends to do. He doesn't match the volume, but he'll land big shots, knockdowns, and things like that that kind of can sway the judges and give him the round. But with Sean O'Malley, you have to be really careful, man, because Sean O'Malley is just so good at controlling that range. He can counterpunch really well with the straight right hand, straight left hand. He looks really seamless from both stances. And obviously, I mean, I feel like the knock on Sean O'Malley is his ability to take damage has not really been tested yet to the head. I mean, I haven't really seen anyone really be able to land big headshots on O'Malley and knock him out. And he has excellent, you know, head movement. So I feel like for Petr Yan, the better game plan would be to go to the body, dig the body, and attack the legs, because, you know, you can move with the upper body all you want, but the body's, you know, the lower torso is kind of going to stay there, and your legs are probably going to stay there. So it's going to be a lot harder to be evasive and avoid those shots for O'Malley in comparison to the headshots. And Petr Yan, man, I mean, that guy has some really good body kicks, really underrated body kicks, I feel, heavy leg kicks, and I feel like he just needs to come with that game plan early, stay that high guard, show guard, try to kind of pressure, be methodical with the pressure, but obviously you have to respect O'Malley's power and his counter shots. So just be a little bit hesitant, but, you know, shell up, eat the shots on the guard, and then throw big leg kicks, big body kicks, try to slow O'Malley down, and maybe even try to mix it up and wrestle. I don't really see that happening because I don't think he's going to be able to find the range to be able to close distance and shoot a takedown, and that's not really his game either. But if he can grapple, he's going to have an advantage there, in my opinion, and by a large margin, and be able to probably even win on the ground by a TKO with ground and pound. But I more see Yan just coming forward, switching stances like he always does, looking to cut the cage off, chop the legs early, go to the body, and then hopefully as Sean O'Malley a little bit slower with his footwork in the second and third round, he could start to land those big counter hooks, the big straight shots, and his big power punches, and try to get Sean O'Malley out of there. But, man, I mean, I feel like this line is way off, man. I feel like Sean O'Malley, it should be a lot closer, like O'Malley, like plus 155. And the line's moving more in O'Malley's direction, but I just don't agree with Petr Yan being minus 310, especially on it being a 3-round fight. And I get why it's hard to pick Sean O'Malley just because of the step up of competition. We've seen Petr Yan in there against the best in the world, and he's already proven that he can beat those guys. But I feel like Sean O'Malley is a tough stylistic matchup for Petr Yan, man. I mean, he has great footwork. His stance switching is on point. He's not going to be standing in front of Petr Yan. He's going to be looking to snipe him from the outside. His height, his speed, I think he's the faster guy. And I also feel like he can kind of sneak up on Petr Yan in this one. I feel like Petr Yan is kind of not really buying into Sean O'Malley. He doesn't think he has anything for him. I don't know if he's going to respect Sean O'Malley. And Sean O'Malley definitely could do some damage, man. I mean, if Petr Yan comes in real reckless, Sean O'Malley, I think, could knock him out. I know some people are going to be thinking I'm crazy with this prediction breakdown, but we'll see. And I think Sean O'Malley also can win on points, man, if he could take two rounds. I mean, the first round, I feel like almost undoubtedly O'Malley is going to win. I mean, look at Petr Yan's career in the first round. He lost the first round to Jinsu Sun. He lost the first round to Aljo in both fights clean. He lost the first round to Corey Sandhagen clean. If O'Malley can bank 1 round in the first round, all he has to do is win one of the next 2, not avoid getting hit with some big shots, and win the fight, man. And I feel like O'Malley is going to be able to move around, have a big speed advantage early, have a big height and reach advantage, obviously, and I think the footwork is going to frustrate Petr Yan. I think he's going to be walking him into some counter shots, and I think Yan's going to be struggling to find the range. O'Malley did get hit with a lot of leg kicks in his last fight, but he was checking a lot of them. And then in the second round, in my opinion, it looked like he was more turned on, and he was moving around and attacking more, and was better defensively as well in comparison to the first round and defending the leg kicks. So if this was a closer line fight, I would go with Petr Yan, but this is more of a betting channel. I'm giving you guys predictions from a betting perspective, and I'm gonna go with Sean O'Malley, man. I'm gonna pick Sean O'Malley to win this fight by decision. I think it'll be a close decision. I think it might even be like a split or something because Sean O'Malley is lower volume and Petr could come on, and his pressure could be something that one judge really likes over the counter ability of O'Malley. But I think people are really underestimating O'Malley here. I think that he's getting a stylistic fight that he likes. He's not going to get a guy that's going to wrestle him. He's getting a guy that's going to strike, that's shorter. And I think, he's going to be able to sneak away with the win here. I mean, the only guy that we've seen Petr fight that has a similar style to O'Malley is Corey Sandhagen, and he was able to beat Sandhagen. But if you remember, that was a short notice fight. And also, it was very competitive in the first 3 rounds. I mean, a judge easily could have gave Corey Sandhagen that fight 29-28 if it was a 3-round fight. So I'm going to go with Sean O'Malley to win this one, and I know a lot of people are going to be shitting on my pick for this one, but we'll see what happens. I got to go with Sean O'Malley here. And here we go. We got the co-main event here. We got the UFC 135 bantamweight title on the line. It's going to be Aljamain Sterling taking on TJ Dillashaw. And man, I mean, Aljamain Sterling, TJ Dillashaw, this is not only for the undisputed title, but the lineal bantamweight title as well. Currently, TJ Dillashaw is the lineal champion. He never lost the belt. Some people may get that confused because TJ did lose to Henry Cejudo, but that fight was down at 125 pounds. Dillashaw never lost the belt at 135 pounds. It was stripped after the USADA drug test failure. And the last time that Dillashaw lost at 135 pounds was in 2016. Aljamain Sterling, he wasn't really even in the mix for a title when Dillashaw was the champ back in 2019, but while he was on suspension, Sterling surged up the rankings, and he hasn't lost himself since 2017. He's on a 7-fight win streak, and that obviously is taken with a grain of salt to me because his first win over Petr was kind of a loss, but Sterling came back, clearly beat Petr in his last fight, proved he's the official champ, and he called for this fight with Dillashaw because I think he knows it's a big name to have on his resume. Dillashaw has not fought in over a year. He suffered a knee injury after the Sandhagen fight, and it might be a good time to get him back in there off of a layoff. But TJ Dillashaw, man, I mean, this guy is an animal. He's underrated. He came back and beat a guy from a new generation in Corey Sandhagen after almost 3 years out of the cage. He came back in, looked incredible. I mean, you got to give TJ Dillashaw a lot of credit for that. I see some people, kind of diminishing that win, talking about, oh, Corey Sandhagen won that fight. I mean, even if you believe Corey Sandhagen won, to come back almost 3 years out the game, have shoulder surgeries and things like that, be as old as TJ Dillashaw is and look as good as he did in that fight, and end up winning the fight. I mean, man, that's impressive right there. And if TJ Dillashaw can come back, reclaim the belt, incredible accomplishment at 36 years old. It would kind of match what Dominic Cruz did to him when Dominic Cruz came back from the injuries, took the belt from TJ. And right now, a lot of people view Dominic Cruz as the clear-cut, undisputed best bantamweight of all time. But if TJ Dillashaw can reclaim this belt, become a 3-time bantamweight UFC champion, man, I mean, you could definitely start to put him in there in the argument. And for Aljamain Sterling, if he wins, it'll give him an all-time great on his resume. Right now, he doesn't really have that. He beat 2 champions. He did beat Borralho. He did beat Petr, but neither Jan or Borralho have the legacy that TJ Dillashaw has at 135 pounds. And I think a victory over TJ Dillashaw will mean more down the line looking at his resume than, Jan still has a long way to go. Petr could eventually, move into that same type of territory. But I feel like Kenan Borralho, TJ Dillashaw dispatched of him and is on a different level. And right now, TJ Dillashaw is either probably 1, 2, or 3 as the best 135ers of all time. So you have to give him that sort of respect. And with this fight, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious every time you have Aljamain Sterling what his game plan is going to be. He's a really big guy for the weight. It seems like he cuts a ton of weight, and he has a long reach advantage in almost all his fights. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight, and he basically just likes to try to move around, stay long, and throw kicks from the outside, throw straight punches, and basically try to wait for that timing where he can hit the takedown. He has unbelievable takedowns, really good back takes, and everyone knows Aljamain Sterling as the human backpacker. I mean, the guy gets on your back, and he could stay there for the whole round. He was able to get on the back of Petr 3 times and win that fight with just the back takes. And, usually when Aljamain Sterling can get one takedown, he can get into a dominant position, control the round, and either get the submission or grind out that decision victory. We saw him submit Corey Sandhagen super quick in less than 2 minutes, which was extremely impressive. And yeah, man, I mean, Aljamain Sterling is just a really big guy. He's a high-level grappler. And if he could take the back, he has a lot of finishes from there, and he has excellent control. It's extremely hard to get him off your back. And that's just what he's going to be trying to do in all his fights. He's going to be trying to close the distance, get a hold of these guys, show that he's the bigger man, backpack them, and either choke them or, come home with that cash after winning the decision. So that's kind of what Aljamain Sterling's going to try to do. On the feet, Sterling, I don't think he can really compete with Dillashaw. He's going to be trying to stay long and move around, but I'm not a big proponent of Aljamain Sterling striking. I don't really rate it that highly. I think that he's improved quite a bit with his footwork and his ability to control distance, so he can land some decent combinations and counters, and his kicks are okay, but I still think he's a little bit spastic. I still think if you pressure him, it could stuff his takedown, stay in his face. You can get him to start to get a little bit wild, overextend, and make mistakes, and you could counter those mistakes, and he will start to get tired. I think that Sterling, if he can't get takedowns and can't get control time and is getting backed up, is going to start to really unravel in this fight, like we saw him unravel in the Petr fight. And, man, I mean, I think it's going to be pretty hard to take down TJ Dillashaw, man. I mean, no one has taken down TJ Dillashaw really that I've seen and been able to hold him down. He hasn't really fought anyone with the length and wrestling skill Aljo has, but he's a former Division I college wrestler. And Dillashaw, he got taken down by 2 people in his UFC career. He's got taken down by John Lineker, where he got taken down one time. It was a real brief takedown. Dillashaw jumped right back up to his feet. There was virtually zero control time from Lineker. And then Dom Cruz did get TJ down 4 times, but Cruz had zero success holding down TJ. Even though he got credited with 4 takedowns, he had 33 seconds of control time. So TJ Dillashaw is a guy that, even if Aljamain Sterling gets him down, I've heard him talking. He says he's extremely confident in being able to compete on the ground with Sterling, being able to scramble with Sterling, not letting Sterling control him and be a backpack on him. And I think TJ Dillashaw, training all those years at Team Alpha Male, having the college wrestling background, being the type of athlete that he is, this guy's going to be extremely hard to just corral on the mat and hold down and take his back and just win on points that way. I think he's going to be a lot harder than Petr in that aspect. And also with TJ Dillashaw, you don't got a guy like Petr that's going to be coming forward. He's going to be right in front of you, pretty basic striking style, so you could set your takedowns up off that. TJ Dillashaw is a guy that's going to be given different angles, moving around, switching stances, closing the distance with a lot of different techniques, head kicks, Superman punches, flying knees, just getting real wild. And he also has great boxing, great stance switch attacks, and his pressure is really good. I think he's going to be pressuring, switching stances, coming from different angles, chopping the legs, attacking the body to come up to the head. And I also think TJ is going to surprise a lot of people in this one, man. I think he's going to mix in his own wrestling. I think he's going to hit a couple takedowns. I think he's going to be able to control on top. And Aljamain Sterling, hey, man, I mean, you might be a beast on top, but we've seen you get taken down before. Don't forget. I mean, we saw you get taken down by Cody Stamann. We saw you get taken down by Brian Caraway. We saw you get taken down by Cody Gibson. So, man, I mean, I think that TJ Dillashaw definitely could wrestle with this guy, take him down, get on top, and be safe there. I don't really see a huge threat of Aljamain Sterling submitting TJ off of his back. And I guess some people would maybe be a little bit trepidatious in just even giving Aljamain Sterling that chance to grapple. But I think if TJ can get Aljamain Sterling on his back and Sterling can't get takedowns on TJ, he can mentally break him and he could gas him out even faster. And I just feel like TJ Dillashaw, man, I think he's going to come back and reclaim that throne. I really do. I feel like he's just a little bit better than Aljamain Sterling on the feet. I think he's the better wrestler, and I think he's not going to get taken down and grinded on. I just don't see that happening. TJ has phenomenal cardio. He has some of the best cardio ever. I mean, I don't know. He used to be on that EPO, man. You know that that helps you out for sure. And you never know. I mean, he's definitely willing to take liberties and do everything he needs to do to get the win. So that's the other thing that I think is good when you're betting on TJ Dillashaw. I mean, fuck it, you got that advantage potentially, but man, I just got to go with TJ Dillashaw here, man. I think he's going to be able to keep it standing for the majority of the fight, be able to outstrike Aljamain Sterling, and I think he's going to be able to hit his own takedowns. And I don't think Aljamain Sterling's going to be that successful with this wrestling. I mean, maybe he'll get a round where he'll get the backpack and control for 1 round, but I don't see it happening for 3 rounds. I really don't. And I think TJ Dillashaw is going to come in here and win this fight pretty dominantly, actually. I'm going to say he wins via 4th round TKO. And man, here we go. We got the main event. This is a fight that I think, if you're not looking forward to this fight, man, I don't know how you could call yourself an MMA fan, bro, because this is like one of the best fights, if not the best fight the UFC could put together, period, in all weight classes. we arguably have the greatest action fighter in UFC history, Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, who's on an absolute tear, taking on the protege of Khabib, Islam Makhachev, who's on a 10-fight win streak. Charles Oliveira has won 11 in a row, and this is actually the first time in UFC history that two fighters on 10-plus fight win streaks are going to face off. And this fight almost feels nostalgic in a way. It's like the MMA gods are saying, you know, we couldn't give you Tony versus Khabib, so here's this fight to make up for it. And Islam is the betting favorite, but I feel like Charles is the A-side, the public favorite in this fight. It's kind of a switch from Charles' last 4 fights, where I feel like he was more the B-side in those fights, and not the public was thinking his opponent was going to get the jump on him. Now I feel like people have turned into Charles Oliveira fans after he decimated their favorite fighters like Poirier, Chandler, Gaethje, Ferguson, but Islam's on a 10-fight win streak, and he's shown absolute dominance, but he's not really fought many names a casual fan would recognize. He's only fought one fighter who was ranked at the time they faced off in his entire 10-fight run. And a lot of his tougher fights, they were fights where his opponent came in on short notice. For instance, when he fought Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Arman Tsarukyan, all those guys took the Islam fight with limited preparation time. Dan Hooker was the one ranked fighter Islam fought during this run of his, but he's 1-4 in his last 5 fights, Hooker. Makhachev's dominance, though, coupled with the backing from Khabib and all those guys in the AKA gym saying he's the next champ, it does make you pretty confident he's ready for this level of competition, though, and that's why he is the favorite on the money line. Charles is once again coming into enemy territory, going into Abu Dhabi here to fight Islam Makhachev, and he just did that in his last fight where he went to Justin Gaethje's hometown and fought Justin Gaethje there. And I think Charles will have it under control with the weight, but making weight is always something you have to worry about before an Oliveira fight. Obviously, that's why there's a vacant title here in this one. And with it being in Abu Dhabi with the travel and all that, there is a potential that there could be some funkiness going on, but I hope not. You know, I don't anticipate it, and I think we're in for one of the best matchups in MMA history. And when you look at the fight, I mean, it's pretty basic and obvious what both these guys want to do. I mean, I hear people like talking to Charles like, oh, you know, you hear Islam saying he's going to want to bring it to the ground and finish you on the ground. Like, what do you think about that? It's like, I mean, obviously he can't strike with Charles. It's not like he has the... It's not like he's like has the option, oh, I'm just going to keep it standing and fuck him up on the feet. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, you know, his path to victory, and like everyone knows, is to get it to the ground. So Islam, he's obviously going to be trying to come forward in that southpaw stance and back up Charles, get him near the cage and shoot in on him. And he has to really do a great job disguising his takedowns, setting up his takedowns in this one, because he's fighting a guy, I know he's fought other grapplers, other jiu-jitsu guys that, you know, he's holding his hat on that. I've heard him talking about that, but those guys like aren't the same as Charles Oliveira, man. They're not opportunistic submission artists that are really good at hitting submissions when you shoot in on them and things like that. So I think it's a different ballgame with Do Bronx. And another thing about Do Bronx, especially more recently, is you can't get this guy to go backwards, man. I mean, he's willing to take shots, keep coming forward, and he's just a Terminator. And I think to hit takedowns in the open mat, it's going to be harder for Islam than people think. I think that he's definitely going to have to get it against the cage and use that cage wrestling in the clinch to get the takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to shoot from a distance to get Charles Oliveira down, and I don't think he's going to be too comfortable shooting from a distance because Charles has a lot of weapons, man, outside of the guillotines and being able to hit submissions when people shoot in on him. He has the knees, he has the uppercuts, and he's very long and proficient with all those weapons. So the guy's a freak. I mean, Charles Oliveira is a straight savage, and he's been proven in recent fights. And I've kind of been riding him in all these fights. He's been the underdog in a lot of them, and he's the underdog once again here. And this time I do think it, you know, is more warranted than when he was the underdog, for instance, against Dustin Poirier and other fighters like that, because we do have a guy in Islam Makhachev that has a dominating style. And if he can get on top of Charles and get Charles tired, we have seen Charles in the past get caught in submissions after fatiguing and things like that. But a lot of the times that Charles has been getting caught in submissions and things, it was at 145 after he had weight cut issues, and it wasn't the best camp, wasn't the best version of Charles. And I think it's a much different ballgame with Charles nowadays. So I don't really see it quite going down like that. But I think on the feet, Islam is fairly technical, and he might be able to land some shots, but I don't think he is going to drop Charles or give Charles any danger that any of the recent opponents have. I think Charles is going to be looking to throw a lot of leg kicks in this one, try to chop the leg of Islam with the calf kicks, and that'll really help take away his wrestling in the later rounds if he really can get to that leg. And then just pressure him, man. Keep Islam on the back foot. Don't let him back you up towards the cage. And I honestly think Charles might surprise some people who hit a takedown on Islam or hit a couple of takedowns on Islam. Because you have seen Islam taken down before, man. I mean, Arman Tsarukyan took him down. Even Thiago Moises got a couple of takedowns on Islam. So I think that Charles could surprise him, hit a body lock. And one thing about Islam that, I don't really like about his grappling, at least when he gets in scrambles, is he does tend to expose the back. And if he does that against Charles and Charles takes that back, we could be seeing, another rear naked choke victory for Charles Oliveira. But Islam is someone, if he can get on top of Charles and cement that position, man, it's going to be really hard for Charles to hit a submission off bottom. I think that Charles is going to have to try to just use his submission to try to create a scramble to get back to his feet, because Islam just has that crushing top pressure. And that's just what Charles has to really worry about early in the fight. I think if Charles can avoid getting taken down early in the fight, I think it's going to be smooth sailing for him, because I don't think Islam has been in the cage with someone like Charles that can strike like Charles and has the grappling threat. I mean, he's been in there with a lot of one-dimensional guys when you look at it. I mean, even the grapplers that he's been in there with, like Arman Sarukian and Davi Hamosh, I don't think anyone would confuse them for being high-level strikers or anything like that. He's in there with Bobby Green, Drew Dober, Dan Hooker. None of these guys are well-rounded fighters. The only fighter you could argue was super well-rounded skill set was Thiago Moises, and that was the toughest fight that went into the 4th round for Islam. So, honestly, man, I just feel like Charles is on another level than all these guys right now. I think he is getting a lot of disrespect again, and he's going to have to come to Abu Dhabi to fight Islam, and that's after having to go to Phoenix to fight Justin Gaethje. And I feel like the UFC should get behind this guy. Even though he doesn't speak English, he's able to connect with the fans in a way that not a lot of people are able to do. And he's a big draw, man. I feel like Charles Oliveira, if he could beat Islam Makhachev, he's going to be one of the biggest stars in the UFC. So I think Charles is going to come in here, and I think he's going to get the submission, man. I feel like he's going to make Islam expose the back, which I've seen him do in multiple fights. And I think he's going to catch a rear naked choke on Islam. And I think on the feet, he might kind of hurt him a little bit a few times before he submits him. And I feel like Charles is going to look good in this fight. I think if Islam wins, it'll be dominant. If Charles wins, it'll be fairly dominant. I feel like it's just one of those fights where either or could happen. I mean, I'm not trying to negate the fact that Islam could drag him to deep waters, get on top, get him tired, and kind of either submit him or beat him by decision that way. But I'm just going to go with the more dynamic style that Charles do Bronx brings, the length. I think his well-rounded style is something that Islam hasn't really seen, whereas I think Charles has been in there with a lot of guys that are trying to take him down. He's hired a wrestling coach for this one, an Iranian guy that is an Olympian, and I feel like he has so much confidence right now. He's at the top of his game. And, man, give me Charles Oliveira again as the underdog. I feel like every time you put Charles Oliveira at the underdog price like that, I'm going to be enticed to bet on him, and it's been a good thing for me so far. So give me Charles Oliveira to win, and I think he's going to win inside the distance via submission. I think he's going to cement himself as one of the best, if not the best, lightweight of all time. And we're going to get a lot of conversation about who's next for Charles. If he could beat someone like Volkanovski, if he could beat someone like Beneil Dariush, there's not that many people left. I mean, so we'll see what happens. But I got to go with Charles Oliveira here, and I'm going to say he submits Islam Makhachev and surprises a lot of people, gets another victory, and just continues to prove to people that he's one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world. So that's my full card breakdown for UFC 280. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for rocking with me through the video. And like I said at the beginning, hit the like button, put down below who you think is going to win in the main event fights. I'm really interested in who you guys think is going to win, Beneil Dariush versus Gamrot, and then the two title fights specifically. And then besides that, man, if you want to get access to the bets, I do have, I believe, 8 or 9 bets already on tap for this card. So definitely go check that out at patreon.com/MMAPredictionGuru. We're trying to get up over 100 units for the year this weekend, which would be a big milestone for us. So really excited for that. And then outside of that, for my most confident pick of the card, I'm going to go with Muhammad Mokaev. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious. And then for the parlay of the week, I'm going to go with Caio Rosa, Muhammad Mokaev, and Caio Borralho. So that's going to be my parlay of the week. So thanks for watching, guys. And like always, I'm going to be back next week to break down the UFC card. Probably give another breakdown and predictions video if there's another card that intrigues me to do a video for the channel. So like this week, I have that ONE FC video if you want to go watch that. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll talk to you guys later.